Welcome everyone to another video and episode on What If Civilization Started Over, Two Human Scenario. And this video we're gonna start speeding up the progression of the entire thing. So every 100 years we'll see something maybe fall, or we're gonna see something just change. So if you guys like the video, hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and welcome to the Age of Conflict. Since the year 234 or BA passed, the Carthaginians have started to slowly regain their strength, but due to mercenary nation attacks and the constant attacks from the Numidians, Berbers and the Moroccans, Carthage started to see more and more fall. But during that, they started a war with Italos. Italos was ready to attack, and they quickly took over these two towns, which were one of the first original towns. And quickly we see that after they are done they do their landing and start to move, they quickly take over a lot of the areas around here, take over where Carthage would be in real life, and they take over even more land. And eventually, after taking the capital, many, and I mean many people on other sides of the whole thing over here start to move, like the Berbers, who immediately smoke most of the Carthaginian territories that they can get to, and by smoke I mean they just take them over very fast. Their first battle against the Carthaginians, the true battle that they fight, is very unsurprisingly easy, because they use this little narrow part to kind of attack them from behind. And after taking that, they stop after a bit of time, as the Italos have at this point moved this much up, and they have forced the Berbers to give them some territories or kind of be invaded again. Quickly, they will also take these areas, which will boost their territories. Also, some Carthaginian forces managed to hold out over here. Not gonna very much remain like that. But we see that the last strongholds of Carthage start to see their fall, as the Moroccan regions quickly take over their areas over here. And Carthage, from where it restarted its climb, has now been stomped into non-existence. At some point, Carthage was the strongest nation in the Mediterranean, Western Mediterranean, and now they have fallen from grace. And eventually, after the fall of that, three nations take over. The Moroccans take over that part of the northern areas, the Numidians take over that, the Berbers take that, and the rest is made into a full-on colony of the nation of Italos. With that, we see that the colony will actually become very prosperous under Italos, which will honestly be very good. But also it will make other people mad that they have lost their capital and now they can't really get it back. These islands continue to resist, try to resist, while some other regions will try and survive. Over here, the Moroccans quickly make their capital over here, and same with these guys, who quickly make their own capitals and will continue on. Over here we see that Essex will no longer have its capital there and will renounce its capital to be all the way over there. With that, we do see that many nations over here lose their capital status, get rid of their capitals, and quickly nations over here start to reignite into a freedom thing. And basically Prussia is very much on the side of these people who are trying to get independence, and eventually Prussia will unite its municipalities under its rule, trying to concentrate the rule of these territories in itself. Eventually, it will start to unite these nations one by one until it fully takes over Bremen in a political marriage, which was forced, by the way. And then, in a shocking way of fall, they quickly see themselves fall apart when the southern parts of their Prussian nation quickly decide to pull away from them. The Polish also start a war which quickly causes them to lose a lot of the territory, which also they weren't ready for. And well, this is the main result of such. The Prussians have been beaten, and the Saxons and the Polish have started to bring themselves into a better status. The Bremen people have started to regain their full-on leadership, although they haven't fully recovered, and at this point they are only making it towards Hamburg with only a few hundred men. After the Battle of Hamburg, we see that the Bremens are pushed back, but in the south, the Bavarian municipalities quickly make the Bavarian Federation, and it quickly becomes very apparent that this Bavarian Federation will not work out for too long, but it will still exist. Over here we see that the Rhine nation exists now, and with that the last nation, being Berlin, forms. And with that, Prussia is finally kicked out of most of these territories, and is also forced to give up their claims on these territories as a whole. With that done, we see that Livonia has also joined this war at some point, although out of expansionary terms, they still manage to pull themselves together, and they are quickly able to take these areas. And by expansionary terms, I mean that they were not expansionist at this moment. Once that's happened, we see that further attacks against Prussia happened, and so nations started to fully pull out of these areas. Well, get rid of their leaders who kind of were part of the Prussian legacy. Quickly, a nation forms over here known as Danzigburg. Danzigburg would quickly start to force other regions under it. Although these regions would join it, its attempted forcing of their joining will not be going quite well. Well, be taken quite well. And for Berlin, it's even more so. After a bit of a skirmish on the border, they go to war. Berlin loses, and quickly the Danzigburgs take over most of the northern regions, managing to also take over the valuable trade route of, well, this area over here, because it has like entrance which leads into this region, which leads into very important trade routes. Over here we see that the Polish and the Lithuanians quickly make a union, which is quickly thwarted after a bit of a fight in the Lithuanian government, leading to most of the territories that were under Lithuania's sovereignty to be taken and quickly annexed. With these areas taken and forcefully overruled, we quickly see that Russian sympathies start to arise in many regions over here, trying to reunite with Ruscovia, who has been at this point rebuilding its nation. They are on the verge of war with Kiev, but Kiev, seeing this, has started to also send its troops into these areas, trying to take out any and all regions that aren't a part of, well, the Lithuanian sphere of influence, basically. In a bit, we do see that these areas will also fall under Latvian rule, and quickly some of these regions will actually gain independence, although only 2 regions will do so and manage to keep it like that. How if I say that they managed to keep it like that, that was because later on they would be tried and attacked by the Polish, which wouldn't very much go down quite well. Over here we see that a quick invasion of let me quickly size this down, of this nation connected these troops up to Ruscovia, and after that Ruscovians quickly joined up into this war, trying to basically re-establish their hegemony over these regions. Quickly taking this over wasn't really a big deal for them. They managed to take them over and quickly make them a part of Ruscovia. Although these were acting as sovereign parts of Ruscovia, the Kievan nation quickly formed the League of Kiev, making a quite a large nation that literally is made up of a federation or coalition type federation. This coalition type federation would unite Odessa, Zaporizhia, Kiev and Pokrovsk under one flag, but seeing this, Mariupol would join under one very specific nation, and after a few years would become a part of their entire nation. We see that nation is Crimea. Crimea, seeing this large nation on their north, trying to stand up against these nations, the Ruscovians, has started to move against them, and quickly we see that the attack on Kiev has started, and it is brutal as Kiev is taken within days. Well, not in days, but basically a battle is fought outside of it and then in Kiev, and both the northern area over here and Kiev itself quickly fall. This is quickly known as the War of Ukraine, where many nations will take place and the Great Ukraine War will begin. The first Great Ukraine War, as there will be another that will cause something else. We see that during this, a Kievan deity becomes very revered, and the first Kievan religion is made. Well, the first religion of these regions over here. And we see that in these areas, much of the population is going to join up into one large how do I say this? Well, religious place. Basically, they're going to look upon this and are going to be like, yo, this is so cool, how about we just do this? Because we can. Kinda weird. Yeah, this is the relation. What if I made it? Kinda looks a bit weird. Let me just quickly turn up the opacity. Yep, there it is. And with the relation quickly expanding, the whole Ukrainian ethnicity starts to take this religion as their own, and quickly the religious areas are confirmed. And don't tell me. God damn it. I think it's not gonna work if I try too much. It's gonna try, I'm gonna try. Fuck. Oh yeah, it actually worked. Basically, these nations quickly listen to this and are a part of this. But with the few nations that do join this whole thing, we see that many, and I mean many, of these areas are going to try and join up into one. As you can see, the Polish have a sizable amount of Ukrainians in the nation. Same with the Roscovians, who have this area to fight for this. But for that whole area, we see that during the fighting that would consume the regions over here, we see many of the towns and areas over here would fall, and eventually Pokrovsk and Zaporizhia would be threatened. But no worries would be brought on to these guys, as the Crimeans would quickly take these two cities over, well, not cities but towns over, and quickly force the Zaporizhian and Pokrovskians to give up on their attempts to stop them and quickly join the nation. Odessa would be forced to give up to Kiev, well, not to Kiev but to Crimea, and eventually the Crimeans would force the literal, and I do mean literal, seizing of these territories, which will be very important, as many of them will be further on used as, well, territories by, well, these guys. Eventually Ruskovia will make itself a lot stronger, and from that they will also manage to annex these Maris. In the north they also take over this Nets nation, which was on the brink of falling, and a Russian, Ruskovik quickly started to, well, take it over. And eventually more attempts to take over other nations' territories begins, and quickly we see that many of them... How many fucking notifications do I get? There we go, we're back, and taking over these territories wasn't really easy, but we quickly see that the Ruskoviks managed to do so. The Odessans quickly also had to give up the allegiance that they gave over to the Crimeans, quickly taking back a lot of their territories, but knowing that they wouldn't be able to defend themselves on their own, they had to kind of give over a bit of territory, just so the Ruskovians would give a bit more back and promise them that they wouldn't invade them. And the Odessans would eventually reignite their expansionist terms over here, and quickly they would take over these regions. While Crimea was doing some stuff over here, we quickly see that Crimea would engage into a war again, but this time to take over the three towns of the... What was this region? I'm just gonna call it the Azov nation. And the nation of Azov, or the kingdom of Azov, quickly lost two of its towns, and also lost its forts after a bit. But it didn't fall just yet, as the local people weren't gonna give up without a fight. So they were going to get the fight, and would you look at that, they kinda just gave up in a bit. And would you look also at that, they also gained a lot of new land. Odessa, you are on a roll. Over here we do see that... Forgot that they were a different color for a second. I love this color, I'm gonna keep it for now. But yeah, the Pulgovskayans, the Ankar and Pulgovskayans quickly start to also force some Romanians under their control. And eventually, as we can see, some of these regions were taken under control, while other Romanians voluntarily joined this Bulgarian nation, making it very strong and very capable of defending in itself. And after the fact, they broke away from Ankaran influence and started to also beef a bit with Macedonia. And speaking of Macedonia, they picked a fight with the wrong nation, that being Albania and Montenegro. Quickly we see that these two nations would fight over a few regions, and we quickly see that the first victories would be by the Macedonians, as they would take over some of these territories. Around this time, a severe, and I mean severe, snowstorm would hit these areas, even though they're a part of the more warmer areas of this world. They will not be able to do much more than just that. Over here, we do see that well, I don't know what this was, but quickly this nation would take over this guy, and would also force this nation into its sphere of influence. Same with this guy, which it would force under its belt. Sparta would try and force its own ideals on this nation, but it would be rebutted, and quickly parts of it would be annexed by this nation. And seeing this and how weak they are, and because of their warrior culture, slowly Sparta would die out. Athens around this time managed to reconvince this nation to join them. This guy managed to reunite his homeland a bit, and this guy up north that he's around, well, friends with, joined into this nation. So politics have been kind of rearranged. But while that was going on, this nation had been consolidating its rule in these regions, and has started to also do some other things. But Crete has also started to force other nations over here under them, and Ankara around this time started to see a severe fall in their strength. Although they managed to take over these regions, they quickly were forced out of them by the local tribes, who eventually joined up with this nation to make a very strong country. Crimea would try and take over these guys, although they would only be able to occupy them, and in some parts they would be actually pushed back, like in the areas that they didn't very know much about, nor in the coastal areas, where the Abkhazian nation was doing its best to defend its own nation. With the Abkhazians quickly doing that, not a few Abkhazian oh god, I ate some chicken sandwiches, sorry. But basically, these guys would try so hard to defend themselves, but some warlords would rise up to defend their homeland and also take parts of it for their own, because they want to become the strongest person in the world. That's just what they want. And after a few years, this is what these guys are left with, and even this guy is taken over by a warlord. So the times of Abkhazian warlords begin, and Ukraine around this time, well, the Crimeans start to expand their territories by forceful expansion and integration, that is, and they would quickly take over some territories over here. Although seeing this, the local people wouldn't be very likable to them, and would mostly join into this nation, trying to kind of cut them off. But with the Mariupols gone and their influence waning farther and farther, we see that something very weird happens, and that's that over here the Estonians have a civil war. Now these guys who start the civil war are very much on the anti-Eston side, and quickly they take over the Pskov, the city, town of Pskov. And quickly after taking it, southern regions would start to also join their side, quickly joining them in this rebellion. Vanya would send aid and troops to help the Estonians, who would be sending their second and third army to this defense. While doing so, the Estonians would actually eventually manage to land a few troops over here. Seeing the primitive forces over here trying to defend against their advance, the Estonians would be doing a bit great, but once the rebellion started, they had to pull back, and eventually they had to pull out of this entire island. I don't know its name, even though I'm a European. Should know local European areas. But quickly we see that the Pskov nation manages to take these two villages, which were very crucial for the troops over here, and quickly they also managed to destroy all the regions over here. Although they do manage to do that, quick advances start to stall, and eventually after they reach this approach, they are stopped by the Estonian military, who managed to stop them and even push them back in the north from these regions. After doing a bit more in these regions, and also going a bit down south to pull resources away from the main fronts up north, we quickly see that this actually became the main front, as Pskov was slowly near and was, well, almost taken, but forces up here had been recalled at this point, and they were pulled back quite a lot. Eventually this nation would gain independence and immediately join into Ruskovia, and for the Vanyans, they would also be forced to have a civil war of Russian sympathists, who think that Vanya hates Russia and so wants to get rid of them, rid of Vanyan rule. Quickly we also see that over here these regions are forced to join Ruskovia, and after this Ruskovia starts to force other nations into its lands, and these two nations become quickly their victims, but eventually they're forced to spit them out, as they didn't chew that well, and they didn't work that good. And around this time, the Great Warlord War of the Mariel Empire would begin, as two warlords would fight for basically dominance in this whole region, and if one took over the other's territories and managed to win, they would be in a greater spot than the other and would be able to full on take over these regions. We also see that around this time the Mariel Empire started to actually crumble more and more. Eventually the Mariel Empire fell apart, with many of these nations quickly that came out of this nation becoming very strong and very capable. I thought that was like a different color. But yeah, most of these nations quickly managed to guarantee some of these territories sovereignty and defense, to force them into their nation. Well, not force, they kind of just manipulated them into becoming part of the nation. But over here this guy quickly decided that it was around time, and this guy started a whole on rebellion in the Marian Empire, and quickly seeing this, the Marian Empire would start to crumble. The second warlord that would still try to stop these guys from becoming any more stronger would try his best, although the eastern approaches were still being worked on, and eventually this second warlord would be beaten, and quickly the Ruskoviks would see an opportunity in the failing and waning abilities of these areas, and quickly the motherland, and I do mean the motherland of these nations of the Mari Empire and homeland would be invaded, and only half of it would be remaining as a part of the Mari homeland empire. And the home regions that would be taken and forced into the Ruskoviks territories would be so devastated in the aftermath that many of them would never recover from what happened, and the Ruskoviks would also force this nation under their belt, quickly starting to form an empire. Around this time Odessa started to also aid the Bulgarskan independence war, as it also was before a event that was starting to form, well, not an event but a full-on thing. But eventually these forces over here started to become stronger and stronger, until these guys quickly said, this is the time of independence, we are not your servants and shall never be. Quick advances in the Ankar and Puppet over here would begin. Although the 3rd Army and 2nd Army would be in the region, they would not be able to stop the advance anytime soon. Quickly after taking this town attacks over here would begin, and we see that the battle for the capital would also start to slowly arrive. But once Bulgarian forces started to arrive there, we see that over here they also started to somehow fly out of these regions, and even some of these guys started to take control of Kashk Pass and these other regions. Quickly, these two towns would join to make a united front and would force the Third Army out of the capital, who was waiting for the armies of Bulgoskaya to take over these regions. Quickly, we see that these areas would start to fall until the Third Army would start a full-on attack against these forces, trying to beat them and just take out their new capital, which would basically be the main thing that they're trying over here. And with all of this being an actual thing, they would have to start their resubjugation of these territories. Around this time, the War of Macedonia was starting to turn back towards those who were attacked first favor, and we quickly see that the Albanians would take over a lot of these regions, and showing their competence against the incompetent forces of Macedonia, the Thessals would start a full-on rebellion, seeking to gain their independence, and quickly that would be only granted in the form of Lesser Thessal, a region within Thessal that would be able to, do basically nothing. Over here in these regions, forces would be forced to occupy them, and over here that's the same thing, as these nations that wanted their independence were quickly tried, and the nations that actually started to gain their independence would work pretty well. Over here we see that forces would start to take over some territory over here, and the Montenegrins would quickly give some territory over to Albania, and same with these guys, would give the top parts of their nation over to Albania. Albania, with this newfound land, would also start a new front down south, trying to take over as many villages and towns as possible, as their main front over here had started to kind of fall off. And seeing this, a rebellion would start in these areas, which the Albanians would support, eventually recognize as an actual nation, giving them their first recognition as a full-on nation. Quickly they would take over their capital regions, and would also give over some territories over back to Albania. And quickly seeing this, Albania would also annex these areas, although it would be forced out of these regions before the annexation could fully go into effect. They also decided that if they were in the future to keep their grounds right now, they were to pull out these regions and allow for Macedonia to fall. Macedonia, in its last dying breath, would curse the Albanians, and at this point the Albanians couldn't do much. They had only been able to do some things, and the Thessals has started to force some nations under their direct control after doing some weird things. And after joining these guys up and forcing this guy to join them, the last of the Macedonian forces in actual Macedon would be forced to give up, and the Thessal Empire, the second empire of Thessal, would come into existence, and will be very important to the future. But around this time I have to stop this video here, with one last thing being the second battle of Kashk Pass beginning, just how it started the last time, but this time that fort that was there shall now, and I mean forever, serve as the fort of triumph. Thank you guys for joining. This war of Bulgarian independence has been very long, Around this time, I'd say even Poland would start to reignite its expansionary terms. But at this point, it's too large. It's beginning to get too unstable, so they might fail to keep themselves together. Königsberg might be a full-on puppet at this point, while Prussia might be a puppet. And next video will focus on the Americas and Asia, since we haven't been over there for a long time. And we're also gonna focus on the technological inventions. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys next time. If you liked the video and would like to support me, please hit that support. Not support. If you want to support me, then hit that like button and subscribe button. It will help me out a ton. See you guys next time.